So, Ashwath, to start off, we've had the last 3 years have been, I would say, iconic. Reminded me of my 99 days in Silicon Valley as a young junior analyst in iBanking. Crazy froth, insane money printing, unfortunate COVID incidents, super inflation, and then, of course, hike in interest rates, etc. Right? So today we are sitting, it's like a seesaw. The volatility is quite interesting, right? And it's interesting how markets, after shaving off a lot in 22, wake up with the whole generative AI thing, and boom, the Nasdaq's back 30%. So I would just love to get your thoughts in terms of what do you see today? I mean, what do you make of this market today? We've got high interest rates, Fed still saying we're not cutting, we're not increasing, inflation's come down. What's your take?
You know what? I've been in markets for 43 years, and every generation of investors thinks it's unique and special, that this is, in fact, the most disruptive, most difficult time in history to invest. I don't think so. I mean, I think every year brings fresh issues. I think the last 2 years have been interesting simply because I think you're seeing a reversion back to norms. I mean, the reality is, post-2008, we've lived in very unusual times that you don't notice if you're only 35 years old because it's your only time you've been investing. But post-2008, you look across the world, you've lived in a world with low and stable inflation. There were two words basically both matter. It's not just that inflation has been low, it's been predictable. And when you have low and predictable inflation, interest rates come down. Much as we'd like to play the Fed card and central banking card, the Fed didn't bring rates down over the last decade. It wasn't quantitative easing. It's the fact that you had low and stable inflation. And we got lazy and we got sloppy. Who's we? All of us, investors, CFOs, companies. Because when inflation is low and stable, you can afford to ignore it. And companies did, investors did, analysts did. I mean, I ask people, where in your valuation is inflation? Most people say, what are you talking about? Because inflation was implicit. You didn't even think about it explicitly because who cared? It didn't really matter. Right. 2022 was a wake-up call. So wake-up call that inflation was not dead, that was just lurking in the bushes. And it's made us re-examine some of the lazy practices we adopted over the previous 15 years. So now, in many ways, this is a return to, hey, you got to take care of inflation explicitly. And many analysts, I think, have had to relearn what it means to live in a world with inflation. I mean, if you look at interest rates today, they look unusually high only if your perspective goes back to 2008. But you go back pre-2008, a T-bond rate of 4% is not unusually high. It's actually low by historic standards. But it takes a while to get used to this new normal. And 2022 was a year that we had to get used to it. And it was painful. It was painful for everybody involved. 2023, it's true, you've seen a comeback, but you're really, I mean, if you think about the comeback, it's not a comeback to where we were pre-2022. It's a very selective comeback. It's a comeback that you've seen it's been very concentrated in terms of what stocks are making you money. You take those stocks out of the market, you very quickly take away the 30%, right? I mean, I've valued the FANGAM stocks, Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Apple, and Microsoft now, off and on every year going back 12 years. And it's been 12 years of essential domination. 2022 looked like they took a step back, but 2023, they've come back and they've carried the market. So I think to me, it's inflation that's been the lead actor for the last 2 years, and I don't think it's going away soon. That's a problem with inflation. Once you let it out, it's like the genie in the bottle. Once it comes out of the bottle, getting it back in is not easy. And I have a feeling we're going to spend the rest of this decade tussling with inflation. We're not going to go back to what we had in the last decade.